You failed an exam, you're stupid. You didn't get into your first choice of university, you're a failure. Your business didn't take off, you're a loser. We beat ourselves up when we don't achieve what we want to achieve, convinced that we are somehow inadequate as human beings because we didn't succeed. But it doesn't have to be this way. When we fail, we can look at those moments as opportunities to learn and grow rather than times where we should feel miserable and ashamed. The key to doing this is a change in perspective. Rather than seeing failure as a sign that you are a failure, you can choose to see failure as feedback, information that will help you succeed next time. To be able to do this, though, requires a certain mindset, one that most people don't have. And there are 3 key habits that you can develop to shift your mindset from one of failure to one of growth. The first habit is to disconnect your self-worth from outcomes. It is natural for us to want to measure ourselves by our achievements. After all, society does it all the time. We look at material possessions, grades, job titles, salaries, and social media followers as a means of determining whether or not someone is a success or a failure. The more of these things you have, the more successful you are. At least that's the message that society sends us. This mindset is what leads people to think that if they don't get into their dream school, then they must not be smart enough. If they can't land a prestigious job, then they must not be capable enough. And if their business fails, then they must be lousy entrepreneurs. But none of this has to be true. You see, while it is true that getting into a good school, getting a great job, or having a successful business is impressive, it doesn't mean anything about who you are as a person. You can be kind, compassionate, funny, curious, creative, and intelligent without being rich, famous, or influential. And you can be poor, unknown, and ordinary without being any of those things. Your worth as a human being does not depend on how much money you make, how many followers you have, or whether or not you graduated from the school of your choice. These things are just facts about your life, stories that you can choose to tell yourself or not. And it's important that you choose not to tell yourself these stories. Instead, focus on telling yourself stories about who you are, not what you have or what you haven't accomplished. Because once you start disconnecting your self-worth from outcomes, you can start looking at failure as an opportunity to grow instead of beating yourself up over your shortcomings. The second habit is to start asking different questions. When we fail, we naturally start asking ourselves questions like, what did I do wrong? Why didn't I succeed? What's wrong with me? And what could have been? These questions serve a purpose. They help us figure out where we went wrong so that we can do better next time. But there's a problem with them. When we ask these questions, we immediately put ourselves in a bad light. We're essentially asking ourselves why we weren't good enough or strong enough or smart enough. And this is what causes us to feel so bad after we fail. But what if instead of asking ourselves these questions, we asked ourselves different ones? What if we asked ourselves questions like, what did I learn from this experience? How can I use what I learned to do even better next time? Who can help me out? And what would have made this experience better? These questions may not help you figure out what you did wrong, but they will help you figure out how you can improve. Asking better questions will help you focus less on your shortcomings and more on your growth. It will help you focus less on what you didn't do well and more on what you can do better next time. And that is a far more helpful way to approach failure. And the third habit is to remember that everyone fails. One of the reasons why failure feels so bad is because we think that we're the only ones who are failing. We look at other people as highlight reels and we compare our real lives to their curated online images. And this inevitably makes us feel like we're behind. We feel like everyone else is succeeding while we're stuck in the same place. But the truth is that this couldn't be further from the case. Everyone fails, regardless of their background, intelligence, skills, or opportunities. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people don't fail. It's that they fail forward. Successful people fail at many things, but they learn from their failures and adjust accordingly. Unsuccessful people fail, too, but they give up. They give up because they don't know how to deal with failure. They feel terrible about themselves, so they stop trying. But here's the thing, giving up is the ultimate failure. Failure itself is never a failure, only giving up is. You have to remind yourself of this the next time you fail. Think about all the people you know who you admire, who you think are successful. Think about their lives and their careers and imagine how many times they must have failed to get where they are now. I guarantee you that every single one of them has failed more times than you can count. But rather than giving up, they picked themselves up and started again. They took the lessons they learned from their failures and used them to improve. And that's how they succeeded. That's how you need to be if you want to succeed as well. I want you to think about two individuals. The first person is a world-class Olympic runner who has been training for the Olympics for years. He runs a 100-meter dash and comes in second place by a fraction of a second. The second person is a couch potato who has never exercised in his life. He decides to train for a marathon, and on his first try, he manages to run the full 42 kilometers. Now tell me, which one of these people do you think is a greater athlete? The answer is obviously the first guy. Despite losing, he's clearly the better runner. His body is stronger, his cardiovascular system is more efficient, and he knows exactly what he's doing. In contrast, the second guy is pretty much just a miracle. He got lucky and managed to complete the marathon without any prior training. Now imagine the same scenario except this time the first guy loses by a mile. The second guy stumbles across the finish line. Now tell me, which one of these people do you think is a greater athlete? Still, the first guy, despite losing by a mile, he's still miles ahead of the second guy. Let's extrapolate this idea out a bit. Imagine the first guy losing by an inch, half a meter, 10 meters, 100 meters. Now tell me, is the first guy still the better athlete? Yes. How about if the first guy loses by 100 meters, 1 kilometer, 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers? Is the first guy still the better athlete? Yes, and you get the point I'm trying to make. Even if the first guy loses by such a huge margin that he literally disappears off the screen, he's still the better athlete. He's simply further away from where he needs to be. This is the way you need to look at your own progress. Don't ever compare yourself to the second guy, because there will always be people who have it easier, people who don't have to train as hard or work as long or sacrifice as much as you are. And if you compare yourself to these people and measure your success based on their standards, then you're going to feel like a loser. But don't forget that while these people might have had an easier path, they are the exception, not the norm. You are the average. So, you need to measure your success based on the average person, not the exceptional one. And the only way to do this is to look inwards and define success based on your own goals and standards. In the context of the Olympic runner example, this might mean setting a personal best time or qualifying for a regional competition. As long as you're improving and getting closer to your goals, then you're making progress. And that's all that matters. Success is a relative term. It's different for everyone, but one thing that's universal is the fact that failure is part of the process. Everyone fails, but it's what you do after you fail that truly matters. Do you pick yourself up and start again? Or do you give up and fall behind? If you want to be successful, you can't afford to give up, you have to keep going. And the only way to do that is to disconnect your self-worth from outcomes. Ask better questions and remember that everyone fails.